Hi, this is Dave Tang with New Legacy Homes, and today I wanted to talk about the benefits of carriage houses. Some of the big reasons why people want carriage houses these days are primarily for the extra space. And then what is it that you do with the extra space? Because the carriage house is detached from the existing home. So it provides all sorts of benefits and uses that people are finding very attractive nowadays. Certainly the extra space itself can be a lot of fun, whether you just use it as a game room or something like that. Practically speaking, for a lot of people nowadays, there's remote work and people want to have a separate office space that they can go to, a place that they can it's like commuting but not really commuting. A lot of people, if they have guests over, they want to give their guests a little bit of extra privacy, especially if there's an in-law situation. A lot of families are moving in together, so if there's an in-law situation, it really gives someone an extra measure of privacy and separation of space. We also have clients who are looking for potential income off of their carriage house units. So you can use them as rental units for long-term rental or for short-term rentals like Airbnbs. So there's just a lot of flexibility that comes from essentially having a self-contained living space on your property separate from the rest of your house. Once the carriage house is done, it's really up to you how you want to use it. Once they start thinking about it, they can really imagine all sorts of different uses for a carriage house. But I just want to say that not all carriage houses are created equal. The carriage houses that we've done, there's just certain things that most people don't think about, but they really should when they're talking to another builder or someone else about possibly doing a carriage house on their property or having it added to their house. Like when we build a house for them, we give our customers the option of adding a carriage house. And some of the things that we have learned that you need to be careful about are, first of all, is just utilities. We've certainly seen on the market builders or sellers that advertise an unfinished carriage house space. Well, you could walk into a carriage house and you can see the studs and your mind starts to go, wow, I could do all these things here. But you need to verify that there's water, there's electricity, possibly gas, so that you know that you can do what you really want with it. For example, if you don't have water and sewer to the carriage house, then you really can't have a kitchen, you can't have a sink, you can't have a bathroom. So if you're thinking of having any of those features in your carriage house, if you don't have water and sewer, then it's very expensive to retrofit the space in order to have those things. Another thing that comes up is electrical power. If you don't have gas to your carriage house, when we build our carriage houses, we actually add a second electric meter. Costs a little bit more, so you got to be aware of, you got to be sure you ask that question if you're having someone else do one of your carriage houses for you. But the reason why we have a separate electric meter is so that you can have full power to the carriage house. Because if you don't have gas, then you're going to need an electric range, you're going to need an electric water heater, an electric furnace. Obviously your microwave's electric to begin with. So you're going to have all these appliances that need more power than you would think. And if you've already got an existing house with its own electric meter set up to power all of those things, and you essentially add an entire structure again, and you need the power to run all of those things separately. If you don't have a separate electric meter, you may not have enough power to really run both the house and the carriage house separately. Another benefit of having a separate electric meter is that if you do decide to use the property as a rental, for example, then that tenant is responsible for their own electricity. And since you're using electricity to heat as well, the water, heat, everything like that, the utility costs then get passed on to a tenant rather than the utility costs are all part of one bill. So it's really important to know what the utility situation is if you're looking at a carriage house, and really understand, therefore, if there is something missing, what the cost is to add that back into your carriage house. Another feature about carriage houses that a lot of people don't think about when they're dreaming about having their separate private space is access. For example, some of our carriage houses, the client is not going to be using it as a rental property or anything like that. They only want the door access from their yard into the carriage house and garage. For others who may think, there may come a day where I want to use it as a rental unit, as an Airbnb or something like that, you may want to have separate access from your alleyway so that the tenant doesn't have to come through your house, the main house, in order to get to the unit. So accessibility, what directions you want to have it, if you're going to have a shared garage, do you want to have a parting wall in between the garage spaces so that one unit can have access to its own garage and the other, and then that may affect how many doors you have into your garage. So these are all types of accessibility features that you kind of want to think through early on in the process. It's a lot easier to frame all of that stuff in, run the proper electrical power, plumbing, and all that kind of stuff when we know in advance what is it exactly that you want to use your carriage house for. Finally, there's some additional fun stuff that you can do too. We've had clients who, for example, on the first floor of the carriage house, they'll put like a covered porch area so that when you go downstairs, you're sharing part of the backyard, but there's also a covered porch area, so it adds a little bit of outdoor living space that's covered. Some of our carriage houses, we've had second floor decks that come out. So that someone has an outdoor space that's kind of elevated, still typically sits above the yard, but gives someone, again, a little bit of a private space that they can call their own, but it's outdoors, they can enjoy the sun. We've had one client who actually requested that we take a second flight of stairs and we built a roof deck on top of the carriage house. So it's a flat roof, there's a second flight of stairs that goes upstairs. It's like your own nest. So again, those are all features that can be incorporated into the design of a carriage house to maximize your enjoyment and the benefits to you. It just takes a little forethought. So if you have any questions, you want to ask all those up front. You want to make those decisions, how much you want to invest in your carriage house. So ultimately, you can have the carriage house that you're looking for. Another key piece when you make a decision on whether a carriage house is ready for you really is the permitting process. Different local cities and jurisdictions may have certain rules and regulations about the carriage house. A, whether it's available as an option for you, or B, the size. Some places really limit the size of the carriage houses. For example, in the city of Indianapolis, you're limited to 720 square feet. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're designing your carriage house so that you can fall within those guidelines. Another permitting issue that comes up will then also include where the location is of certain things like your power and electricity, sewer. Is there access for those types of things? And that's all part of the permitting process as well. Different jurisdictions require a certain level of detail in the plans. So again, those are all things that, because we've done so many of these, we're very familiar with the process. We're always happy to sit down with clients and prospective clients, talk through all of these options, and help them really design the space so that it meets their expectations when they actually have it. They started to become popular in California. That's probably where I've seen more of them being built. Because in California, the density, the population, there's just not a lot of room. So there's not a lot of room sometimes to build really large houses. But all of the needs or the desires are still there, whether it's a guest space, an in-law unit, a little bit of rental income, just extra space for fun. So in California, people were finding that, maybe we build something up over a garage, we can go up a little bit, add that space, have a separate entrance for some of the things like whether it's a home office or again, as a rental unit or as a guest unit with extra privacy. So a lot of that kind of came from what I saw when I first came here from California, that need for space and the best way to do it on a property that has limited space. I would say half the houses that we've built in the last couple of years, our homeowners are electing the carriage house option. And again, it's for all the reasons I've talked about before. They just really want to have that extra space that gives them the flexibility to do with what they want. And so we talk through with them, here are some of the design considerations, here are some of the utility considerations, this is what your city will allow, and how do we combine it into something that really, really works. And of course, the design of the space as well, to make sure that it's actually a usable and livable space. We're really big on space planning in our main houses, and we really try to maximize the space in our carriage houses as well. I think overall, the fact that almost half of our new buyers are electing to pay for the carriage house option just shows that the demand really is there, and we're ready to fulfill that need.